Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to Imperfect Life. In this video, I want to show you what you need to know to start using that sewing machine today. Whether somebody gave you a sewing machine or you bought one on a whim, or you bought one with lots of inspiration and then kind of became discouraged when you opened it because you weren't sure where to start, this video is for you. I'm going to try to get it all done in 10 minutes. I have two machines here. I have a newer machine and an older machine. The anatomy is basically the same, but the newer machines are much more user-friendly and have better technology. So let's start with the newer machine. This machine I have is about, oh gosh, it's actually like 9 years old now, but you know, it still has a lot of the newer features. I love this machine. I bought it for myself for my birthday. It's a Singer Confidence. I'm not affiliated or anything. So again, the anatomy is the same. You're going to have your manual wheel over here that moves the needle up and down. Let's turn it on so you can see. Okay, it's going to manually move the needle, okay, up and down. Your cord, your presser foot, okay, that you're going to use to control the sewing. So all machines are going to have this knob for your thread. Okay, and it's going to go through somewhat of an obstacle course, okay, to thread it. You got this, and this stabilizes the thread. You want to make sure you run that thread through every step. And around this hook here, this part here controls the tension. Your machine should have something similar. And then down, okay, and then through this tiny loop here, and then through the needle. It is critical that you put the thread through every step of the threading process. If not, your bobbin's going to get tangled. Okay, so if your bobbin starts tangling up, first thing to do is check and make sure that you've gone through all the steps of the threading. Okay, now speaking of bobbin, this machine has a top loading bobbin, which is awesome. And when I go over the old machine, you'll see why. Okay, so you just drop the bobbin in. It gives you a little diagram to show you which way it goes. Okay, so if you have a top-loading bobbin, a machine with a top-loading bobbin, that is so much easier. And unlike my old school machine, I never have issues with the bobbin. The older machine, I have issues with it. Okay, so you have your thread, your top thread, your bobbin thread. Okay, and then you have this presser foot. Okay, and somewhere underneath, you're going to have this arm. Okay, that moves the presser foot up and down. So once you have your fabric underneath, put your presser foot down so that it holds it in place. Okay, the other thing that most machines have, and I don't know if you'll see it with this lighting, probably not, but you have a measurement gauge here on the side here, and it'll show you what's a 1/2 inch, what's a 1/4 inch, assuming that your needle's centered. Okay, if it's not centered, then those measurements will change. So that's a nice little guide that you can run the edge of your fabric along there. You have a nice straight seam or stitch at the measurement that you need it. Okay, so another part of the machine is the tension control. The newer machines have this auto tension, which I always use, and then it kind of adjusts the tension based on the fabric, and it kind of takes the guesswork out for you. But if you want a looser tension, you're going to go negative. If you want tighter stitches, you're going to go to the positive. And that's going to depend on your fabric. And you might want to, depending on what fabric you use, I'm not going to go into every fabric now, but Google it. You know, what tension should I use for satin? What tension should I use for knits? And you'll get that answer really fast. Okay, and then this is the stitch control, which stitch you're going to use. The newer machines have this little cheat sheet here. I almost always just use a straight stitch. And then it should have a dial here that's going to control the length of your stitch. Okay. And then it's also going to have a control for the position of your needle. I don't know if you can see that, but I'm sliding it and it's moving it either to the left or the right. Okay. So in order to there's two other things I want to go over. One, you're going to need to wind your bobbin. Okay, so how do you do that? So in order to wind the bobbin, what you're going to do is it usually has this thing up here. You see this knob up here? The old machine has it too. That's to wind your bobbin. So to wind your bobbin, okay, you're going to feed the thread around this little loop here onto the bobbin. And if you look through, the bobbin has these little holes. Okay, so pull your thread through one of those holes, slide it over to lock it in place. So I hold this thread at first until it gets started, and put your presser foot down, and then it's going to start winding the bobbin. So once you get started, then you can let go of that thread. Okay, sometimes your spool will fly up because of the speed that it's going at, so I'll usually put a finger on that to hold that down. And then just go ahead and hold the presser foot down, and that bobbin will, okay, that'll wind that bobbin, okay? So that's how you wind the bobbin. Putting the needle in. Okay, once you have the needle, the correct needle for the type of fabric you're sewing, read the package. They make it pretty self-explanatory. So you're going to need to put the needle in. If you look at the needle, one side is flat. They're pretty universal too. And then the other edge is rounded. So you have like this flat side and then this rounded side. It will only fit in one way. I'm not sure about other machines, but in my machine, the rounded side goes to the front. And then it will slide right up in if you have it correct. If you don't have it correct, it's not going to go in. And then you want to tighten that bolt on the side to secure the needle in place. Okay, so we went over the basic parts of the machine. We went over how to wind the bobbin, how to pull your thread through the machine, threading the machine. We put the needle in, we dropped our bobbin in, and moved the thread according to the diagram. So you are ready to sew. Okay, so I'm just going to do a little demonstration. You want to get your I have two little pieces of fabric here, nothing fancy, but it doesn't matter. It's enough to show you how to get started. Most of your instructions are going to say right or wrong side. If you're not sure what that is, the right side is the side that would be on the outside. Okay, if you wanted this to be your outer fabric, that's the right side. If it says wrong sides together, and you're not going to see that much, it would be the back sides, like that, okay? Usually you are going to see the term put right sides together, okay? So you're going to put a face down, face where those right sides are facing each other, okay? I always pin, okay? It's just going to make it much easier when you sew, the fabric won't shift. So you can put a few pins in there. I won't need it for this piece, but just pin it in place and just make sure the pins are out of the way, okay? So you want to make sure your presser foot is lifted, okay? Then you're going to put your fabric underneath, and whether it's a, 1/4 inch seam allowance, 1/2 inch seam allowance, you line it up with those measuring lines on the plate. Again, hard to see, I'm sorry, but you'll see it on your machine. Okay, so I'm going to match these up with a 1/2 inch. Okay, and then once you have that in place, put your presser foot down. Okay, you're all lined up. Find your foot pedal. Again, I almost always use a straight stitch unless, you're doing something that requires something a little more complex. But as a beginner, probably not. Straight stitch should be fine for whatever project you're working on. Put your hands one side here. I always put a thumb underneath, okay? And then gently press the foot pedal down. Okay, now when you start the stitch, it's always recommended to do what's called a reverse. And you should see a reverse button. It's going to have like a U-turn with an arrow. Okay, and what it's going to do is it's just going to go and you push that down. In my machine, that's all you have to do, and it goes back over to reinforce the starting stitch. And then you'll usually want to reverse and then just go forward again. I have my bobbin thread caught here. So you'll usually want to do a reverse at the beginning and then at the end of your stitch, just to reinforce, okay? So we'll go till about there. I'll press that, and it's going to go back over a few stitches, and then forward, okay? And then lift your presser foot when you're done. Pull it out, gently tug it out, and you're going to see there's 2 strings there, okay? One is your top, and then one's coming from your bobbin. Most machines have a blade, like mine has a blade back here, and then you can just cut it loose, okay? And then what you would do is, I trimmed away some of those threads, and then you open it up, and a lot of them will tell you to press it flat or press the seam open, and all they mean by that is to just on the back side open the seam and press it, depending on what you're sewing, and then, you know, so that it lays flat. So definitely have your ironing board up and ready to go, because a lot of sewing is going to require you to press. But look, so you see how we sewed those two pieces together, okay? All right, and that's all there is to it in a basic sense, and then you can follow the instructions of your pattern or whatever it is that you're making beyond that. One thing I want to show you is how to change out the foot. Most sewing machines come with a zipper foot, and as I mentioned in one of my other videos, I was always kind of intimidated by it because I thought that, you know, you needed some special skill to use a zipper foot. You don't. Okay, somewhere along the back of your get my hand out of the way, you should feel a little lever on the back of my machine. You see that black lever to the right there? If I press that, the foot drops off. Did you see that? The foot came off. Okay, so this is a standard foot. I'm going to take this out and I'm going to put my zipper foot in. Now, depending on what side the zipper is on, here's what a zipper foot is. Let me show you. Regular foot has two sides, so it's going to be hard to get close to the edge of a zipper with both of these sides here. A zipper foot simply has one thing in the middle to hold your fabric down, so that's going to allow you to get real close to the zipper. And you can see you can put your foot on either side depending on where your zipper is. So you're going to put the foot underneath there, and I put it slightly forward because then when you drop down your presser foot, it kind of finds its space. Okay, just see that snap in? And that's it, and it basically attaches itself. Now you see I'm lifting my presser foot, and that foot is attached, and that's the zipper foot. And it just makes it easier for you to get your zipper nice and close to the needle. All right, I wanted to go over that with you. Now I'll take that off. Take off the zipper foot into place. Okay, it's that easy. So that concludes part 1 of this tutorial. In part 2, I'm going to be going over the older style machine. So if you have an older machine, please go ahead to part 2. It's only 4 minutes long. If you don't have an older machine, then you should be all set. Thanks again for tuning in to Imperfect Life.